This NHL season has been as predictable as a puck rolling on its edge. No one knows where it's going, but that just means there's time for your favorite team to figure things out, and games left for you to get in the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. And if you are new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. NHL and NHL team marks are the property of the NHL and its teams.
Episode 99 of the Habs Culture podcast. My name is Justin Schwartz, alongside Liam Baum. The last time we spoke, we had done a preview for the Canada-US gold medal game. Liam and I were both right in our predictions to say that Canada took that one, McKinnon being the MVP of the tournament, McDavid scoring the goal in overtime to put Canada over the U.S., Binnington playing out of his mind in the OT and having a very strong performance after many, including ourselves, knocked him on social media and knocked him in the pod last time, or at least on YouTube for those of you who got to tune in there. But nonetheless, Canada reigned supreme in a sense, taking that one, showing the U.S. who's boss and showing that we will not be the 51st state of the U.S. And well, we'd like to keep it that way. But we won't get more into it than that. It was honestly fun. It was great for the game of hockey. So many new viewers, fans tuned in there. I don't know if you saw Liam, but Matthew Tkachuk on the Jimmy Fallon show. I saw both Tkachuk brothers also on Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey's podcast. Yeah. So just like good for growing the game. And honestly, like overall, even though Canada won, honestly, regardless of the outcome in that one, it was just a great tournament for hockey. But we'll keep it at that for now. We'll start talking a little bit about the Canadiens and the fact that ever since they've been back from the break, from the Four Nations break, they have a 3-0 record in that span, beating the Sens on Saturday night, followed by a win on was it not Thursday, Tuesday night against the why am I blanking? The Hurricanes. Thank you. So they beat my favorite coach in Rod Brind'Amour and showed him who's boss. And then they followed that up with last night's win Thursday night against the Sharks at home in overtime with a just disgusting goal by Cole Caufield. I don't even want to, and he walks Macklin celebrating. Like it was poetic, but nonetheless, Liam, 3-0, Monty's 3-0 in that stretch. We'll show some stats soon, but what are your thoughts before the break? Things were not looking good for the Canadiens.
Yeah, I mean, they came out of the break. Suzuki and Caufield haven't missed a beat. And, I mean, overall, it's great coming out 3-0. Unfortunately, a lot of the teams they're battling with in that wild card race also have been very successful. So they're kind of at the same point as they were. They were 6 points out of the wild card spot going into or coming back from the break. And then since those 3 wins, they are 5 points out of a wild card spot. But again, if you continue to build on this momentum, you're going to do well. And Ottawa has been a very hot team. I mean, as of late, they haven't been, but they're a good team, and the Hurricanes are a very good team as well. Obviously, they take San Jose to overtime, but all that matters is they came out with those 2 points. And hopefully, again, they can build from there and continue to make their way up the standings as other teams continue to lose games.
Just a few updates with regards to the Habs before I get into the upcoming schedule and the point producers. Kirby Dach suffers a knee injury on his other knee. He will be out for the remainder of the 24-25 season. Honestly, man, I feel for this guy. I think it's enough. I think his he is injury prone, but to have two major knee injuries back-to-back years is just decimating as a player, mentally, physically, everything in between. And he will be entering his last year of his contract as a Montreal Canadien. Just quick note there, nothing against Kirby as a player. Obviously, when we acquired him a few years back in that deal at the draft to his time now, there's obviously been ups and downs, and a lot of it we can actually chalk up to injuries and the mental aspect of getting back into the swing of things after recovering. But if you're the Montreal Canadiens and assuming that there's going to be a long rehab process to get back for game one, obviously in October of the 25-26 season, is he a guy that you would ideally, and again, it really depends on next season too, but as of right now, is he a guy that you think that the Canadiens will try and retain once his time is up in Montreal?
I mean, I think he's not going to get more than he's making right now. Obviously, this is the third season in a row that he's going to miss significant time, and that doesn't bode well for a long career. I mean, again, both of us love Kirby, and hopefully he's able to bounce back from this, but now it's a little bit concerning. Obviously, this opens the door for somebody else to come in. Owen Beck's looked pretty good, but maybe the second line center role is now open for the future because it's very tough to recover from serious knee injuries on both your legs. And unfortunately, I was talking about this with one of my buddies. This is a similar situation to Nolan Patrick. Obviously, Nolan Patrick has suffered serious head injuries, but it was just season after season. A guy with such high potential couldn't live up to what he was supposed to be because of these injuries. And hopefully it's not as serious as Nolan Patrick's injuries were, but it's not looking good for Kirby. And how old is he? What, 24, 23?
He just recently turned 24.
Yeah. So it's not good to in terms of longevity. And we're going to have to see what happens. Is he going to be completely healthy going into next season, or is it going to take another 4 months for him to get his step again? But at that point, are the Canadiens really looking to continue this project when it just seems like year after year it takes so long for him to get into the swing of things because he's recovering from another injury? So all that to say is I think the door is open for a new potential second line center, whether that's this draft, Michael Misa. I'm pretty sure Martone has also played a bit of center, but
James Higgins as well.
Or they go out and trade for a guy like Dylan Cousins. So it's going to be interesting. And again, I hope Kirby recovers well, but the door is open now.
I think that the fix for this position at 2C is not going to be through the draft. Even though I think that there is a lot of potential there, I think that where the Canadiens situate themselves at this point in time, and assuming they probably play maybe just under 500 hockey down the stretch, and of course they have their ups and downs. We've seen that over the last 2 months, but I just don't know if they're ever going to find themselves in a top 5 slot to be picking from that cream of the crop in this draft, whether, like you said, Misa, Higgins, Martone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I do think it's going to, I say unfortunately, because I wonder what they'd have to give up to acquire a 2C in this economy. But like you said, like a Dylan Cousins on a struggling Buffalo team, I mean, look, they're looking for guys in return that are going to give them scoring, that are going to give them immediate help because they want to capitalize on, the Rasmus Dahlins and the Tages that they have on their team. Like, they're not going to just sit still and rebuild after not being in the playoffs for 15 or almost 15 years, right? So my point is that, and we'll get into a mock trade episode. I think it will be fun because at the end of the day, that's approaching really, really quickly. But I think that the fix is going to be somewhere around the league, and I just don't know what the cost is going to be. And especially when Kirby did look very, very solid when he first joined Montreal a few years back. So it really, really sucks for him.
I think there's a lot of names too around the league that can use a new or just new scenery in general, whether that's, like you said, Dylan Cousins. Trevor Zegras has always been around a lot of rumors, or like maybe even Casey Middlestat. There's a lot of options, and obviously each of those players is kind of like a reclamation project. I don't even know if that's the word, but you're kind of doing what you did with Kirby Dach. You're banking on previous potential and hoping it works out. But I agree with you because I don't think the Canadiens are able to wait 2-3 years for a guy to develop. And I put up a poll on Twitter, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and it was talking about if the Canadiens were to move Jake Evans or Armia, and that doesn't really have to do with this, but the point was, the majority of people ended up voting that they would like picks in exchange for those guys. And in all honesty, I was very surprised, because if you're getting a late first rounder, you're obviously not getting a top 15 pick if you're making a trade at the deadline. So let's say you're getting a pick from 16 to 30. That guy might take 3-4 years minimum to get into the lineup. So I just don't think those voters really understand that the Canadiens aren't in a position to wait much longer, especially with Caufield and Suzuki, who are your two core guys right now, already 23, 24 years old. If you're waiting, yes, I guess they're going to be in like their 27, 28 year. But how long can you really wait? And especially in a environment like Montreal where people want the team to compete. So I just don't see picks being the right answer.
You would refer to the fact that guys in the back end of the first round, if that's the pick that you're getting from 16 to 32, like they might take 4 or 5 years to develop, and that's if they develop at all. So I just think that the chances of that guy becoming a 2C in the NHL are very, very low. So if you're looking at the board, I have the trade bait board in front of me, and that's obviously for specific to this year. And obviously they're not going to take into account a lot of guys that maybe might be considered unmovable or not or are not having their names floated around at all. But guys like you said, Casey Middlestat, who has 2 years left at 5.75. You have Dylan Cousins 5 years left at 7.1, which is definitely a bit hefty. But I think as a 2C in this economy, it seems to be warranted, especially if he can find his spot. Another name on the board, which I don't think is actually moving, and I wouldn't even acquire for this price, but Elias Pettersson at 11.6 mil, 7 years left. Like, I wonder what his deal is, Like, I'm not saying that it would ever work in Montreal, and I'm not suggesting that whatsoever, but it's just funny to me that his name's being floated around. But I definitely do think that it's going to have to be through the trade / acquire an NHL ready player as opposed to going through the draft, because that's just not going to work in my opinion. But anyway, we'll get into the last 3 games for the Canadiens. Obviously been a fun stretch, and just to kind of give you a little bit more insight, Liam, they are going up against the Sabres. We're Friday, so they're going up against the Sabres tomorrow night in Buffalo, and they have a home and home, and then they got Buffalo in Montreal on Monday the 3rd. So those are 2 games that you got to win if you want any chance of even having those playoffs in that wild card spot. Being 5 points back, you can really take 4 points there and solidify that. But I'm going to throw up these stats on the board. Pretty crazy. When I looked at this, I almost didn't believe it. Nick Suzuki, if you're watching this on YouTube, you see it for yourself. But for those of you listening, Nick Suzuki, 8 points in his last 3 games with a +4, 3 goals, 5 assists. Patrick Laine, 5 points in his last 3, 2 goals, 3 assists. Cole Caufield, 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points. Lane Hudson, 3-3. Juraj Slafkovský said he wanted to play bigger, better, faster, more like one of those Tkachuk brothers. He's got 3-3, 2 goals. Struble quietly with 3 assists in 3 games there. Galley, 2-3. Newhook, 2-3. And we'll leave it at that for now. But things seem to be meshing for the Canadiens in this 3-game span. Obviously, don't want to overreact, but seems like things are looking a bit different. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, I'm just pulling up now. Suzuki, with this last little stretcher, he's up to 60 points in 59 games. So continuing that point per game pace, I think at the start of the season, we said he could potentially be a 90-point guy. And if he continues playing like this, I mean, no question. Patty Laine obviously struggled a little bit before the break, but right back on track. He's up to 23 points in 31 games, and obviously 14 goals is 4th on the Canadiens. Gallagher has 15, but Cole Caufield as well, 53 points in 59 games, just hit a new career high with 28 goals. I believe that was a career high. Maybe it tied his career high, but
I think it ties, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, regardless, he's gonna break that. It's the big boys are coming to play. I'll say that. And obviously, very nice to see Struble. Him and Hudson have been a really underrated D pairing so far. and I was reading something, and it made a lot of sense. It was talking about how Hudson needs a guy who can skate but also play super physical that opens the ice for Hudson to move. So maybe Struble is that guy. Their underlying numbers are really, really good. I know it's a small sample size, but they're looking really, really solid considering Gooley's out for probably the rest of the year, right? Um, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
But
we'll see.
it's been looking really, really good so far. And one thing to note is that the Habs have scored 5 goals, 4 goals, and 4 goals in the last 3 games. So they're putting up a lot of goals. Their power play has been clicking, and I think Slafkovský has been very, very good. So big ups to him. And yeah, the stats are looking really good. I still want to see a little bit more production out of New Hook, but yesterday was a good goal to tie up the game. So kudos to him.
And Monty coming back from the break, being a part of that Team Canada team, obviously having not played, even dressed at all. But, you go against Ottawa, 926 save percentage, follow that up with a shutout against a good Carolina team. And then obviously struggled a bit yesterday with an 885, but you get away with the win there. So he's had under a 3 GAA for the last 3 games. And I think that, again, I've always liked to talk about Monty because I think he's underrated. And I think he's underrated in the sense that, I don't know if we spoke about this, Liam, but I think when I was watching, or I don't know who I was talking with, but I think we might have been in the hockey locker room, and I said, I don't know. And it was when Binner was struggling. I said, I don't know why they wouldn't give Monty a shot. And I think people were very quick to say, well, why would he go over a guy like Aiden Hill, for example? He's the 2, Monty's the 3, so on and so forth. And I just think Monty has proven to be a good goalie, and consistent at times on a bad team. And now give him a team that actually has a strong decor, right? Give him a team that can score goals. He's proven it over the last few seasons to be stronger than people give him kudos for. And I think that we have to start recognizing that, look, he's maybe not the goalie of the future, but he could definitely hold his own in this league. So obviously, again, small sample size in the last 3. He's had his ups and downs this season, more specifically during that one bad stretch in the month of January. But I think we got to give credit when where credit's due.
But I feel like we've talked about it a lot. When Montembeault is hot, he's hot. Like, he is a very good goalie. It's just the consistency factor. And I think this goes with every goal in the NHL, where being consistent will lead your team to a playoff spot and eventually a Stanley Cup. It's just finding the right time to be hot. But if Montembeault kept up his play like this more consistently, I could see the Canadiens going much further than the position they're in right now. And I'm not surprised at all, because again, when he's playing well, nobody could beat him. It doesn't matter what team he's playing against. It could be a top 10 team in the NHL, and he's still shutting the door on the best players in the league. So I'd like to see more out of Montembeault. I'd like to see him continue this streak.
100%. I was going to pull up the standings now. Liam, you had mentioned that the Canadiens are currently 5 points back of a wild card spot, which is occupied right now by the Columbus Blue Jackets, but tied in points with Detroit in that first wild card spot. Detroit's been playing some really, really good hockey as of late. They've had their big boys clicking. Columbus playing with a purpose. You really do like to see that, when I think a lot of people wouldn't say counted them out, but on paper didn't expect them to be as good as they are at this point in the season. New York creeping back in, I guess you could say, getting a bit better play as of late, but wow, the drop off is significant there. They just lost Fox for potentially the rest of the season. So that's interesting. And then the Sens, also interesting because they haven't had Tkachuk, Pinto, or Josh Norris for the last few games since the break. So we'll see where they end up. The Bruins, I've heard rumors, at least on Twitter, that they're going to be big time sellers at the deadline. So interesting to see who they'll move. Maybe Zaka, Geeky. Don't think they're moving off Pasta. Maybe Marchand even.
Yeah, maybe Marchand.
And then you have the Habs sitting there with 62 points in 60 games. So definitely a very tight Eastern Conference wild card race. I think in the past we've talked and given our predictions on who we think will finish in those spots, but I don't remember exactly who we said. But do you have a new set of predictions? And we are, probably 22, maybe 3 games out from the season being over.
I mean, I think I said Ottawa, Detroit, or Ottawa, Columbus, but now I don't know if I see Ottawa creeping in anymore. I mean, when I watch them, they're pretty electric, but again, there's just that consistency factor where they're not consistent, and when They're probably the most streaky team in the NHL, I find. They'll go on like a 7-game winning streak, then a 5-game losing streak, then another, 4-game winning streak and a 5-game losing streak. So it just seems like they're playing 500 hockey, but they'll look really good at times and then really poor at another time. I think the same thing goes with Detroit, and their goalies are super inconsistent. Cam Talbot will let in 5 goals, but somehow they'll win 6-5. I just don't think that's a recipe to get into the playoffs. So I think Detroit misses out again. I like the Rangers, but again, like you said, losing Fox is rough. I don't think Boston makes it in, and then the Islanders are so hard to read. Weren't they like?
No, I'm over them.
Weren't they 2 points out of the playoffs like before?
Probably. But Liam, they've literally sat in this similar spot for the last decade. Like have they ever been a top 3 team in their division? I know, but
it doesn't really matter because they made the conference finals twice in a row and just couldn't get by Tampa.
Right, but they made the conference finals in a year, if I'm not mistaken. One was a COVID year, and the other one they might have both. One was
they were both COVID years, really.
Right, so not that necessarily matters because I mean you go back to Montreal's playoff race and that was fun. But my point is that I just think the Islanders at this point I think are kind of on the decline, and they're going to stay there because they've stayed stagnant in pretty much every aspect. The trade front, the draft front, they haven't really done anything to shake up their other than going out and getting Patrick Roy to coach this team. But has he really made that significant of a difference versus Lambert, who was previously there? They just can't seem to find consistency and consistent offense, right? I mean, when Barzal's out of the lineup, who's producing for them? No one.
I agree. Rather than giving who we think's making the wild card spot, let me name you these teams, and you tell me if they're trending upwards or downwards. Mm-hmm. So let's start at the bottom. So Buffalo,
down.
They've been kind of good recently.
But they have
53
I guess they're on track to finish bottom. But sure, I guess recently they've been a bit better, but I would stay the same.
Okay. Pittsburgh,
down. They're
Agreed.
horrible.
Islanders,
down. I don't think that they're making any
Flyers.
ground on it. Flyers have been decent lately. Mitchkov's figuring it out all of a sudden.
But they blew a 4-1 lead.
To Pittsburgh last night. But I would still say upwards in the grand scheme of things.
Okay. Montreal, obviously.
Upwards
right now.
Boston, I would say they're kind of in the middle, but more downwards than anything.
Yeah. Senators.
Ooh, I would say down as well. But again, that's without their key guys. So
yeah, Tkachuk is going to be back.
I think they're all going to be back. Maybe not Norris, but the other two.
Not Norris, but yeah, Tkachuk definitely back. Rangers.
I would say upwards.
I'd say they're kind of just stagnant. Shesty isn't trustworthy anymore. I don't know about him, but yes, again, in the grand scheme of things, they are trending upwards. And then Columbus, what do you think?
Upwards. They're playing great hockey recently.
I think they deserve
and Detroit,
some good
same
karma.
thing.
Yeah. And Stadium Series is tomorrow, by the way, between Detroit and Columbus.
Ohio, right? So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're playing in Michigan.
That's really cool. Yeah, so based off that, I think we can conclude that let's give it as an overall thing here. I think we can conclude that Detroit and Columbus, I wouldn't say are secure in that spot at all because nothing is secure, but I think that they're probably playing the best hockey recently to warrant getting that spot. The Rangers have been okay. They might squeak in. I don't see the Sens. I don't see the Bruins. Realistically speaking, I don't see Montreal unless they go on another December run. Philly, no. Islanders, no. Pens, no. Sabres, no. So for me, it's between the 3 teams that are at the top there right now. I don't know about you.
I'm going to keep Ottawa in there. Even though I said what I said before, I think I'm still interested in seeing how they bounce back with Tkachuk, hopefully Norris soon, and Ullmark needs to find his game again, but I don't think you can count them out just yet.